The drones were suicide weapons, each one carrying an antimatter warhead. When they reached their targets, they simply detonated. The matter-antimatter annihilation released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons, but focused and directed by magnetic fields. Valdren destroyers found their shields suddenly overloaded by weapons that shouldn't have been possible for a primitive species to possess. Antimatter? Thex said in disbelief, his voice filled with an emotion that Valdren rarely displayed: fear. Fleet Marshal, they're using antimatter weapons. How did they develop antimatter technology? Carvon had no answer. Antimatter production and containment was supposed to be a technology that took civilizations thousands of years to master. The humans had achieved FTL travel only 26 years ago. They shouldn't have antimatter weapons. They shouldn't have relativistic railguns. They shouldn't have a fortress network hidden in their asteroid belt. Everything about this situation was wrong. All ships, maximum shields forward, Carvon ordered. Battle Groups 3 and 4 flank the defense network from above and below the orbital plane. Group 5. Begin targeting the platforms with heavy plasma bombardment. The Armada began to adapt, using its superior numbers and firepower to methodically destroy the asteroid platforms. The humans fought with desperate ingenuity, but they were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, the hidden fortresses were reduced to debris. The drone swarms were decimated by point defense systems. The Valdren fleet's casualties were higher than expected. Nearly 200 ships destroyed or crippled, but they were still winning. Then they reached Saturn, and the humans revealed their third surprise. Saturn's rings, billions of chunks of ice and rock orbiting the gas giant, suddenly came alive with weapons fire. What appeared to be natural ring material was actually another layer of camouflaged defense platforms, these ones using the planet's massive magnetic field to power electromagnetic accelerators. Tungsten projectiles, each one the size of a telephone pole, began firing at velocities that would shame most Valdren weapons. Simultaneously, Saturn's moon titan revealed its secret. The entire moon had been converted into a massive military installation, its thick atmosphere hiding construction that had taken decades. Missile batteries emerged from beneath the surface, launching thousands of warheads toward the Valdren fleet. These weren't conventional missiles but quantum-entangled weapons that changed their flight paths instantaneously, making them nearly impossible to intercept. Fleet Marshal, Thex's voice was now openly panicked. We're detecting massive energy buildups on multiple moons throughout the system. Jupiter's moons, Uranus's satellites, even some of Neptune's moons that we already passed. They're all armed installations. Carvon finally understood the full scope of what they faced. This wasn't a desperate last stand by a primitive species. This was a trap 50 years in the making. A defensive network so comprehensive and so carefully concealed that the Valdren scouts had never detected it. The humans had allowed themselves to appear weak, had deliberately maintained the image of a divided, disorganized species while secretly building the most paranoid defense system imaginable. Recall the fleet, Carvon commanded, his tactical mind recognizing when a situation had deteriorated beyond salvage. All ships maximum speed retreat to the outer system. We need to regroup and reassess. But the humans weren't finished. As the Valdren Armada attempted to disengage, Earth's small visible fleet, the 300 ships that everyone had dismissed as irrelevant, suddenly attacked. But they didn't attack like a conventional military force. They attacked like pirates, like guerrilla fighters, like desperate survivors who had nothing to lose. Human ships darted in and out of the Valdren formation using maneuvers that violated every principle of proper fleet tactics. They ignored their own safety, ramming damaged Valdren vessels, self-destructing to take out key targets, using their smaller size to dodge between the larger alien ships. They broadcast random communications on all frequencies, creating electronic chaos that disrupted Valdren coordination. They fired weapons in seemingly random patterns that somehow managed to hit critical systems. Admiral Okafor, commanding Earth's defense fleet from the bridge of the UESS Defiance, watched his tactical display with grim determination. His orders to the fleet had been simple. Make them think we're crazy. Make them fear our unpredictability. All ships, Okafor broadcast. Remember, they've conquered 1,000 civilizations that fought by the rules. So we break every rule. We don't retreat when we should. We attack when it makes no sense. We make them doubt everything they think they know about warfare. Show them that humans don't fight like anyone else in the galaxy. The human ships obeyed with desperate enthusiasm. The destroyer Indomitable, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, didn't retreat to safety. Instead, it accelerated directly at a Valdran battleship, its captain broadcasting a final message. For Earth. The collision destroyed both vessels, but it also created debris that disabled 3 other Valdran ships nearby. The frigate Resolute, surrounded by 5 Valdran cruisers, didn't surrender or attempt to flee. Instead, it overloaded its reactor and detonated, the explosion creating an expanding field of plasma that scrambled Valdran sensors for thousands of kilometers. Ship after ship made similar sacrifices, each one buying precious time, each one inflicting damage far beyond what their size and capabilities suggested possible. The Valdran fleet, used to fighting according to established tactical doctrine, found themselves unable to predict human actions. Every decision they made seemed to be the wrong one because the humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt their enemy as much as possible before dying. In the Ghost Protocol Command Center, Dr. Okonkwo watched her screens through tears. Every human ship that died represented dozens of lives, friends and colleagues she had known for years. But their sacrifices were buying time for the final phase of the defense. Commander Zhang, she said quietly, activate the quantum net. Zhang hesitated for just a moment, his finger hovering over the activation controls. The quantum net was the most experimental weapon in humanity's arsenal, developed in absolute secrecy over 15 years, tested only in computer simulations. They had no idea if it would actually work, but they were out of options and out of time. Activating quantum net, Zhang confirmed, pressing the controls. Throughout the solar system, on hidden platforms built into asteroids, moons, and concealed stations, quantum field generators activated simultaneously. These devices, based on theoretical physics that most human scientists still didn't fully understand, created localized distortions in the quantum field that connected all matter in the universe. The effect was subtle, barely detectable, but it had one specific purpose. It disrupted the exotic matter that Valdran shields used to deflect energy. On the terminus, Thex suddenly screamed, his neural implants flooding him with error messages. Fleet Marshal! Something's happening to our shields. The quantum matrices are destabilizing. I don't understand. The humans shouldn't have technology that can affect quantum-level systems. Carvin watched in horror as across his entire fleet, shield after shield began to flicker and fail. The Valdran shields weren't being penetrated. They were simply ceasing to function, as if the fundamental physics that made them work had suddenly changed. His ships were now vulnerable, their supposedly impenetrable defenses reduced to nothing. All ships emergency retreat, Carvin commanded. Maximum FTL speed returned to Valdran space immediately, but even retreat was complicated by the chaos humans had created. The electromagnetic interference from destroyed ships made FTL calculations difficult. The debris fields from hundreds of destroyed vessels created navigational hazards. The quantum disruption field made their drives less efficient. What should have been a clean withdrawal became a desperate scramble for survival. The human forces pressed their advantage mercilessly. Every weapon platform still functional fired at the now vulnerable Valdran ships. The remaining human vessels, many of them damaged and barely operational, continued their suicidal attacks. The asteroid belt had become a graveyard of ships from both sides, human and Valdran alike. Carvin managed to extract approximately 60% of his fleet, nearly 2,800 ships, and successfully initiated FTL retreat. Behind him, he left more than 4,500 vessels destroyed, damaged, or dead in space. The Eternal Armada, which had been invincible for 4 centuries, had been shattered by a species that barely understood the basics of interstellar warfare. As the last Valdran ships vanished into hyperspace, Earth's defense forces stood down. The solar system fell silent except for the crackle of radiation and the distress signals from damaged ships on both sides. Humanity had lost 208 of its 347 warships. The Ghost Protocol platforms were 70% destroyed. Thousands of humans were dead or wounded, but Earth still stood. The colonies survived. Humanity endured. In the Ghost Protocol Command Center, Admiral Okafor composed a final transmission. It would be broadcast on all frequencies, carried by quantum relay stations toward known alien civilizations, a message that would eventually reach even Valdros Prime itself. To the Valdran sovereignty and all who might consider humanity an easy target, we are called humans. We are young, we are primitive, and we are few in number, but we have something that 10,000 years of conquest has made you forget. We remember what it means to fight for survival. We understand that the universe is not kind, and that strength alone does not guarantee victory. Okafor paused, choosing his next words carefully. We did not want this war. We sought peace, cooperation, and friendship among the stars, but we also prepared for the alternative because we are survivors, and survivors never stop planning for the worst. You brought 7,000 ships to crush one primitive world. You lost more than half your fleet. We do not celebrate this. We mourn every life lost, yours and ours. But we will not apologize for defending our home. We are willing to talk, to negotiate, to find peace. But we are also willing to fight, to bleed, to sacrifice everything if necessary. We may be primitive by your standards, but we are not weak. We are not defenseless, and we are not prey. Remember this. Remember that humanity exists, and remember that we earned the right to exist through blood and fire and the desperate courage of people who refuse to surrender. We don't want to be your enemies, but we won't be your victims. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Across the solar system, repair crews began the long process of rebuilding. Rescue operations searched for survivors. Medical facilities worked around the clock, treating the wounded. The dead were honored, their names added to a memorial that would be built on Luna, visible from Earth, a reminder of the price of freedom. On Valdros Prime, High Castellan Zareth would eventually receive the news of the disaster. The Eternal Armada, his symbol of absolute power, had been crippled by a species that shouldn't have been able to mount any significant defense. The psychological warfare he had planned had backfired catastrophically. Instead of spreading fear throughout the galaxy, he had demonstrated that even the mighty Valdran could be defeated. The message would spread across the stars. Not the message Zareth had intended, but a different one entirely. A message that a young, primitive species had faced annihilation and survived. That cleverness and preparation could overcome raw power. That humanity, for all its youth and inexperience, was not to be underestimated. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again, and humanity would never forget the lesson they had learned. That survival required not just hope or courage, but endless preparation for threats they hoped would never come. The war was over, but history had just begun.